All right, today we're going to build something really useful, a toolkit. And no, not for fixing your car or whatever, but for something way trickier, navigating the super messy world of moral debates. You know how easy it is to just get lost in gut feelings, right? Or just heated opinions? But what if I told you that you could have a set of tools to logically, cleanly break down any moral argument you come across? Well, that's what we're doing. Let's dive in and swap out all that confusion for some real clarity.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. You make these kinds of judgments all the time, every single day. Maybe you're debating a news headline with a friend, or maybe you're just trying to figure out your own stance on a big issue. So, what's the difference? What separates a really solid, persuasive reason from one that, just completely falls apart the second you poke at it? That's the big question we're getting into today. And this quote right here, it nails it. It really sets the stage for why this matters so much. See, moral reasoning isn't some abstract game you play in a classroom. Not at all. It's a fundamental, real-world skill for just navigating life. The whole point is to use reason as our compass, right? To kind of lift ourselves out of that fog of our own biases and snap judgments. And that is exactly what this toolkit we're building is all about. Okay, so first things first. Before we can even think about judging an argument, we gotta know what we're actually looking at. What are its parts? So let's pop the hood and take a look at the basic components. This is the first tool for our kit, understanding the anatomy of an argument. The most basic, fundamental building block of all this stuff is what we call a statement. And the key thing to get here is that a statement is an assertion that can be either true or false. That's it. So it's not a question like, is murder wrong? It's a claim. It's saying murder is wrong. See the difference? That's a statement. Think of it like a single brick, and we're about to use these bricks to build something much, much bigger. So what happens when you start linking those bricks, those statements, together in a specific way? Well, you get an argument. And let's be super clear about this. When we talk about an argument here, we are not talking about a shouting match, okay? In logic, an argument is just a structure. It's a piece of reasoning where someone is giving you reasons to try and convince you that their main point is true. And every single one of these arguments has two essential parts. You've got your premises and you've got your conclusion. The premises, those are the reasons you're giving, your evidence, your supporting statements. And the conclusion? Well, that's the big point you're trying to prove, the whole shebang. A good way to think about it is the premises are the foundation and the conclusion is the house you're trying to build right on top of it.
Okay, let's look at a real example so this isn't so abstract. Here's a super simple argument. The first two sentences, those are premises, or reasons. Premise 1, if John acted in self-defense, he didn't commit murder. Premise 2, he did act in self-defense. Pretty straightforward. And then, you see that magic little word, therefore? That's a huge flashing sign that tells you the conclusion is coming right up. And the conclusion is, he did not commit murder. See how that works? The premises support the conclusion. That's the basic structure, right there.
All right, so now we know the parts. We've got premises and conclusions. Easy enough. But it turns out arguments come in two main flavors or two main designs, and this is the next tool we're adding to the kit. Because not all arguments are even trying to do the same thing. They basically fall into two big categories, deductive and inductive. And the difference between these two is absolutely crucial. It all comes down to the goal of the argument. A deductive argument, it's going for the knockout punch. It wants to give you absolute, 100% rock-solid certainty. If the premises are true, the conclusion is guaranteed. But an inductive argument, it's doing something different. It's more like it's playing the odds. It's trying to show you that its conclusion is probably true, that it's very likely. So one is all about certainty, the other is all about probability. Okay, here is the most classic example of a deductive argument in all of history. Seriously, let's walk through it. Premise 1, all men are mortal. True, right? Premise 2, Socrates is the man. Also true. Now, if you accept both of those things are true, just ask yourself, is there any possible way the conclusion, therefore Socrates is mortal, could be false? No way. It's impossible. It is logically airtight. That is the power of a deductive argument. Okay, now let's flip it and look at an inductive argument. Check this out. Almost all the men at this college have high SAT scores, and Julio is a male student at the college. So the conclusion is that Julio probably has high SAT scores. And that seems pretty reasonable, right? It's very likely. But is it guaranteed? Absolutely not. Julio could be the one guy who's the exception to the rule. And that's the whole difference in a nutshell. The conclusion is probable, but it's not a sure thing. Okay, so we've got the basic parts down, and we know the two main designs. Now we get to maybe the most important tool in the whole kit, the quality check. How do you tell a well-built argument from, well, a piece of junk? how do we decide if we should actually believe the conclusion? This is the big one. Believe it or not, it all comes down to a pretty simple two-step test. Step 1, you look at the logical structure. Does the conclusion actually follow from the premises? Is it connected properly? We have fancy words for this. We ask if a deductive argument is valid or if an inductive one is strong, but it's all just about checking the structure. But that's only half of it. Step 2, you have to evaluate the content. Are the premises, the starting points, actually true? And this is so important. A good argument has to pass both tests. You can't just have one. You can have the most brilliant, perfect, logical structure in the world, but if you build it on false premises, your conclusion is totally worthless. It's that classic idea you've probably heard before: garbage in, garbage out. A perfect argument structure can't save you if your starting points are just wrong. All right, last part of our toolkit. Now we're going to look at the user manual for what can go wrong. Let's talk about the common traps, the mistakes in reasoning that you see pop up all the time. They can be really persuasive on the surface, but they're actually broken. These are called fallacies.
Yeah, a great way to think of a fallacy is like a counterfeit argument. It looks real. It might even feel convincing when you first hear it, but it's a fake. It's built on a fundamental flaw in its reasoning. And honestly, learning to spot these is like developing a superpower in critical thinking. So let's start with one you've definitely seen before: the appeal to the person. You might have heard it called its Latin name, ad hominem. This is super simple. It's when someone totally ignores the argument and just attacks the person who's making it. They're changing the subject from the logic to the person themselves. This is a textbook example right here. We should reject Alice's assertion that cheating on her taxes is wrong. She's a political liberal. I mean, come on. Who cares what her politics are? Alice could be a liberal, a conservative, from another planet for all it matters. It has absolutely nothing to do with whether her argument about tax ethics is good or bad. This argument doesn't touch her reasoning, it just attacks her. That's a classic ad hominem.
Okay, here's another one you will see everywhere once you know what to look for: the straw man fallacy. Here's how it works. Instead of actually dealing with someone's real argument, you build up a fake, distorted, much weaker version of their argument, a man made of straw, and then you knock that down instead. Because, it's a whole lot easier to knock over a straw man than to fight a real person. And here's that exact tactic in action. The person says, X obviously wants to strip religious faith from every member of our profession. We should not let X have his way. Now, is it likely that person X actually said that? Probably not. They almost certainly made a much more subtle, nuanced point. But see how this misrepresents their view? It twists it into something super extreme and scary, which makes it really easy to attack and get people to dismiss it, all without ever having to deal with what they actually said. So, let's do a quick recap. There you have it, your basic critical thinking toolkit. First, remember that all arguments are made of premises and a conclusion. Second, they come in two main flavors: deductive, which aims for certainty, and inductive, which aims for probability. Third, and this is key, a good argument needs both things: a solid logical structure and true premises. And finally, you gotta keep an eye out for those common reasoning traps, those fallacies. So, now you have the toolkit. The real question is, what are you gonna do with it? Because this isn't just theory, right? It's a practical skill you can use every day. So here's my challenge to you. Take a belief, it could be one of your own or one you hear all the time from other people, and actually put it to the test. Run it through this toolkit. Break it down into its premises and conclusion. Check its structure. Question if the premises are really true. Go on. See if it's as strong as you always thought it was.